What's up, and welcome back to the greatest teacher of all time, where I, Quincy Dawson, interview teachers of color, type their personalities, strategies, and philosophies on education. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and visit greatestteacherofalltime.com because it helped me support other great teachers like Mr. Tabb. What's up, Brahin?
Hey, how are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much for being here. You have a really cool story that I just want to dive into. Um,
Yes,
but first of all, so right now you are a teacher librarian, right? Or librarian teacher.
yes.
What is that exactly?
I'm an elementary school librarian. Like the students go to see the art teacher for art class and gym teacher for gym class. I teach research skills in the library. A lot of schools have libraries, but a lot of schools don't like have libraries because when funding is low in a lot of schools, the arts are usually the first to go. Got art, music, library, language classes. Those are the arts that usually get cut in a lot of places where there are not a lot of resources. And so you might see me in a building where there are a lot of financial resources, but if you're in the inner city, there may not be an elementary school librarian in that building.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because I think when budget cuts do happen, like the first to go are like what you said, the music, but also like the counselors and the librarian, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow. Well, I
exactly.
definitely applaud you and appreciate you for your work, but I want to get into that in a second. First, let's start talking about your life as a teacher. So you were teaching for
Okay.
about 4 years in the beginning, correct?
I started teaching right out of college. Excuse me. I student taught in England. I taught kindergarten for my very first year for a half year. And then when I came back to the States, my very first position was as an emergency certified librarian. There was a vacancy in one school, an elementary school, and I did that for a half year, and I found my niche. And after that half year, where I needed to be certified to continue being a librarian, I didn't have that certification. I would subsequently have to go back to graduate school to get certification. But set that second year, I became a classroom teacher, third grade teacher with 39 students in my first year. And then I was looped with that same class to be their fourth grade teacher for my third year. So 39 students.
Wow. How was that? A class of 39 students.
We didn't have enough books, we didn't have enough desks. And it was and I was well, now a year out of college. And so this was not anything that I had read in the textbooks. About not having enough books and not having enough desks. Physical plant was not set up for education, for proper education, formal education. So it was an immediate disappointment that all of the wonderfulness in the college life that I experienced and the ideas of formal education weren't really met properly when I became an actual teacher as a third grade teacher.
Yeah, man. But it seems like despite what you weren't given, like you still made the most of it.
I
Going
did.
on your Instagram, you made a post about how you made like such a big impact as a teacher, where you have students from like 20 years ago still reaching out to you.
I did.
Can you
I
tell me
did.
about that? Like your impact, or like your legacy. How does that feel?
It makes me feel like it has been for a reason. I had Mrs. Hart, which was my middle school librarian and my inspiration to become a librarian. And I I just I respect little learners. I It's a mutual respect that I've had with them for 24 years. I don't know how to describe it, but I'm there at the beginning of the school day. I'm done at 3:45, and I don't want to see another kid until the next day. I give it my best. I give it my all. We're not emailing. We're not doing any of that. So for students to find me, one student Googled me and found me and said, I just graduated from college and I'm a school counselor now. And you laid the blueprint. You gave me the blueprint for life. And I didn't have a father. I grew up in an all female household with my grandmother and some aunts and mother. And for her to say that when I didn't have a role model and I was trying my best and I was 22 years old, And it was a lot, but I did it to the best of my ability, and I've had feedback that I did well. And that's two, three students that have reached out to me.
Wow, what an amazing feeling. I can only imagine that. But man, yeah. Thank you. Like on behalf of them, like thank you. You're really doing the work and putting it in. Um
I think,
Another thing too, so maybe just me personally, but like I never like give out my phone number or social media to students, but it's always after I wake up to like 10 notifications of like friend requests from students. I'd like give them the speech for like, guys, I'm not your friend like that. Don't add me online. I'm not trying to add you back. How is your experience?
yeah.
And you said like years later, students are finding you and adding you. What is that initial feeling?
Well, I've been teaching since 1999, and that was the beginning of computers and the internet in the classroom, not computers, but pretty much the internet being rolled out for every school. So we didn't have like computers in our classroom back when I taught. We had the beginnings of research on the internet. We had a computer teacher, a lab that the students went to once a week, and those were those big old Apple bulky one piece. I don't. You're too young. You don't even know. Those were those really big bulky Apple. I don't know what they're called,
Yeah,
computers.
those are those
And
ancient computers you see at like the museum.
yeah, yeah. So you didn't have the teacher's email then, and so I asked the one kid, "How'd you find me?" I Googled you, and I found the school that you were in. I said, "Okay, well, let me see how I can take that down so
Ah,
nobody else can find me." I mean, I don't really do. I do my very best, but I don't. Sometimes teachers fraternize a little too much with kids, and kids want parameters. The kids want parameters. You have to be that role model, and I never was a high school teacher. It's got to be different for high school, where that's a didactic conversation that extends beyond the walls of the school sometimes. So I never wanted to do that because I don't want to be in constant conversation with a young learner or a parent.
yeah, parents too. I don't know. Part of it is that I don't want what half of it is I don't want you knowing what I'm doing outside of school, but also I don't want to keep up with you in that way. And not in like a mean, disrespectful way, but just like that is that boundary where like you should feel that you want to keep things separate from your teacher, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I've done pretty well by doing that. I'm a very formal person. This is a Saturday, so I'm dressed down, but every day it's a suit. Every day is formal wear. And it's because students don't see it all the time. And I've had that really um, a part of my whole being since 1999, showing my very best. But then when it's time to go, I go, and then I have a life.
Yeah. And I think that's the important part, right? Just setting that little boundary, right? Okay, personal life, school life, or work life. But maybe
Mhm.
going into that a little bit and you being formal, but also having such a positive impact on these students' lives. I saw online too, you were also in the military, correct?
I
Yeah.
was for a short stint. My very first year of college, I enlisted and I did that. Extended career, it was not a good fit for me to be in the military for an extended career, but I did my bit. And then I just continued to finish college, and that was 2 more years of that. And then I became a teacher.
Okay, okay. So even if it was for a short amount of time, I still gotta ask, people think of the military. Were you a strict teacher? Were you the type
Well,
where sit up straight in your desk and
oh, wow, yeah. Well, you do have to learn all those things like 45-degree angle for a bed when you're fixing your bed, 45-degree angle, and polishing the boots and breaking down a rifle and putting it back together in a timely
yeah.
manner.
Did
Uh,
you put those strict notions on your students?
One thing that I did take away was military. I learned that you don't smile immediately. It takes a while for the drill sergeant to give you a little bit more of themselves. So I did take a little bit of that military training into my teaching. And when I started in the classroom, it wasn't an immediate smile. It was just like, this is very what we're going to do. This is, and then eventually you smile more and you do more casual things. But if I found it to be very important because students need those parameters set up at the onset, and once those are established, then you can run with it.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting because when I first started teaching, I was like in an inner city neighborhood. I was told the exact same thing, right? Don't smile till November, don't smile till December, right? And honestly, I don't know how you were like when you first started, but when I first started, I looked just like this, probably even younger, and I couldn't pull off that act of like being tough and like not smiling all the time, right? So it felt like I wasn't being myself, but I don't know. I found ways after that where I can be myself and smile and everything, but also be stern and lay my rules out, you know?
Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, it worked for me. It
Yeah.
worked for me. I'm smiling all the time. I just got a note from a little first grade girl. She said, and it's very interesting because I became a teacher to help everyone, of course, but for people who look like me, I thought they need role models. But more feedback, more and more feedback that I receive are from people who don't look like me. It's always a little girl with white colored skin and maybe an Asian background, or blonde hair and blue eyed. And sometimes I get feedback from little boys or little girls that look like me. But that's a whole other issue because when you're the only in the class, you don't always want to go out of your way. It's just sometimes easier to blend in. So in that sense, I feel like I'm helping, all of the students. But she said, you smile, and that makes me smile. And that's when I know that when I'm not smiling during a day or things are just too much, I got stuff in the background, maybe I need to take a day to reflect and I want to give them my best. But if it's too much showing on my face, students will feel that. And I don't think that's a good thing or a healthy thing for them to see me once a week and I'm not smiling. I'm not that stern teacher. I'm smiling, but I'm saying sit down.
Yeah, and I've been championing on this, but I've said it before, but I think it's important for me. So I've been at independent schools with mostly a white population, and I think I was important at those schools because I think a lot of those students never saw what a positive black young male role model can be,
Yeah.
right? So that's why I think I was important. And I feel like it might be the same thing with you. Like these students, I guess I don't want to generalize too much, but maybe when they think of an older black man, they don't think of a happy, jolly, smiling person, right? So you're
Yeah.
there breaking that stereotype and showing them the different possibilities.
It's a heaviness that I feel. It really is important for me to give my best, show my best, and it feels like a weight. It feels like I'm carrying. Um, I am my ancestors' wildest dreams. That's on the wall back there. I am my ancestors' wildest dream. My grandmom, I went to school up until 11th grade. That was the end of school when she went to school. It wasn't a 12th grade. No formal education beyond that. I was the first of my brothers and sisters to go to college. I'm the oldest, but the only one to graduate, and probably one or two in my family, or three in my family that have done it. So being a role model, not only for my family members and my personal life, but for others. And like I just said, it's amazing how many people don't look like me in the other opposite gender, and they're like, "Wow, I relate to you." So I give my best.
Yeah, and that's great. And you're definitely doing that. I want to make a little transition to your librarian life, right?
Yes.
So, first of all, when I think of like the ladder and moving up in the schools, I think you start as a teacher, maybe move to an admin, then maybe a principal, or maybe switch the order. But you actually kind of started out as a librarian, went to teaching, and then back to the library. Can you tell me about that transition?
Yes. Yes, I became a librarian, my very first paid position in the States. for a half year. And then when I couldn't do that anymore because I didn't have the emergency certification to continue, third grade, and then went back to school to become a librarian. And that was my niche. My niche, I found my niche by happenstance. Yeah, I mean, just because there was an opening for a library position in this one elementary school, and I chose to not start my career by going into a classroom half in the middle of the year for my very first class experience, and I found my niche. So sometimes accidents or happenstance happens.
Yeah, and that's great. And I want you to talk a little more about like what you actually do as a librarian, because I want this to like open up the conversation to show that librarian is an avenue to go once you think you're done with teaching. But you still teach as a librarian, correct?
Yeah, I'm not done with teaching. I teach everything that I teach the research skills. I consider myself the research arm or the research component of what is already happening in the classroom. So I know the curriculum of kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth. And if I know that the students are doing this project in their class, then when they come to library, then I do the research component to it. I do internet skill. I do digital literacy. I do literature appreciation. You know, that's what you read aloud, and that's for the younger grades and K to 1. But what I've learned was everybody likes to be read to. So you think a fourth grader doesn't want to be read to? Oh no. When I was a middle school teacher, academic teacher, they like to be read to. And then when I have big events in front of the school, or if I have parent volunteers, now this is very interesting. So I have parent volunteers that come in all day long. I'm not really into people watching me teach, but I've gotten used to it. And I'm in this big open setting. But I have volunteers that I have to oversee every day. And they come in and I can see them watching me teach. So it's given me some more confidence because I can see the pride on the face of the parents when I can tell that their students, their kids don't look like me, and they're like, oh, he's getting something good out of this experience with Mr. Tabb. So yeah, I do research, literature appreciation, digital literacy. I have a whole curriculum, and that's what I do.
Man, and that's great. And I could definitely
We
see that.
need more Black male librarians. I am the only one. They're in my school district. I am the only one as far as the eye can see. There are 110 certified librarians in the country. There are four types of librarians: academic for college, special area, maybe the Library of Congress, schools, and public libraries. I'm a school librarian, and 110,000 librarians, 500 of that 110,000 are African Americans who teach in school setting. And of that 500, 52 are men that teach in elementary school. So there are only 52 people like me in the country who teach in elementary school as a librarian who's a male. And it's a much needed area. Librarians are gatekeepers to information. We work with curriculum committees to bring in new resources. We can, I've been teaching about Shirley Chisholm, and students didn't know this African American woman was the first person of African descent to run for president, female. Um, but for me, I'm not sure if things like that would happen. Even though it's a part of the curriculum, I'm not sure that it would happen. So I feel very blessed that I have that opportunity. So that's what I do.
Yeah, and again, thank you so much for your work. And I kind of want to ask, you've been doing this for a while. I'm sure you've seen some changes in the librarian field. Um, do you see things getting better? I know we talked about how like librarians, counselors, and arts like the first to get cut traditionally. Do you see any changes in the future? Like, is it looking brighter on the horizon?
Well, I would hope that if whomever is watching this video would consider library science as a career, if you're an African American male, I've learned so many things by being a librarian. I've learned that if by fourth grade, a student is not reading on grade level, then 95% of the time they will never catch up. That was huge for me when I started my career. I read and learned that African American males are disproportionately in special needs classes, or referred to special needs classes for services. Um, I've learned that elementary school librarians disproportionately focus on fiction. And when I was in grad school, I didn't recognize and understand why all the other, I was the only person that looked like me. My whole class in graduate school was opposite gender, opposite skin hue. And I learned that me not reading this fiction book by this author, and she's a love interest of this guy, that stuff doesn't interest me. I like biographies and geography and history, and males disproportionately prefer nonfiction. And when you go to elementary schools, you see the focus primarily on fiction because the librarians disproportionately are female. So trying to weave a niche, a different niche in which I do nonfiction narrative, I do narrative nonfiction, I do biographies, and I read from this dry script. And it becomes more interesting actually when the kids hear it out loud. So it's not fiction make believe, and then he went up into the sky, and then he even did. Oh no, this person, date, time, this, and kids will fall in line with that. I mean, just because they've been given fiction disproportionately doesn't mean that they don't like it. It's just the preference of the people who taught it. That's it. Because teachers teach what they do best. And if you're a person that prefers fiction, you're going to do fiction. But I prefer nonfiction, so I've done the opposite route.
Man, yeah. And again, I could just see like your unique twist on how you like deliver material and everything. Like you are definitely needed in these schools. Definitely,
Yeah,
definitely.
and we need more of us. Yes.
Yeah, we need to get the word out there. Um,
Do you know, if I can interject? You may want to not include this, but the call me Mister program. I've been very interested in that in the last year, and I learned that through Instagram. Clemson University and a few universities. I've been talking to my HR where I am about the need for African Americans in education, and hopefully the pipeline can be built so that even from high school, students are recognized and identified for their skill set so that they can possibly move toward library science, or even just they want to be a classroom teacher, because we know about the opposite pipeline about fourth grade. The statistics in fourth grade show that if a student is not on level, then 95% of the time they will never be on academic reading level. So, jails or prisons are built because of those statistics. That's that pipeline. I want another pipeline to circumvent that, so that, students are identified, get into elementary education, get into middle school education, math education, science education. This is the time to do it, because we see in our ranks lower numbers of students graduated from college being education majors. So this would be the time. If you look like me, if you have that need to not be rich, you won't be rich, but you will get much more out of it when you know
you'll
that
be
you've
rich in
impacted
spirit.
the world. When you know that you're making this world better than you found it. That's what I'm doing. My whole point in life is to make this world better than I found it, leave this world better than I found it. And when I get that feedback from students that you have laid you gave me the blueprint. I mean, I don't know what more you can. That made me sit and reflect. Wow, so much I didn't have male role models in my family, not many. Didn't have that. It's controversial, and I won't mention it, but when I grew up, there were shows. There was Oprah. There was the Cosby Show, and I'm definitely not purporting to be on the side of any controversial figure who is properly going through the penal system and had their time with law. But shows like those two shows, they raised me. And I try to do the best for me. I mean, I saw characters on there that I said, oh, and I can do more like that. And they go to jazz clubs. I like jazz. Oh, now because of that. And he's wearing a sweater, and okay, maybe I'll wear sweaters. That's formal. And he's wearing something formal in the house just to meet the friends of their son. And okay, I'll do that. And it's I'm just trying to do my very best.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I answered that question.
No, no, no. You definitely are doing your best. And again, I applaud you, appreciate you and everything. My last thing I have, you kind of touched on it before, but as a teacher, you may, or traditional classroom teacher, you made such an impact on these students' lives where like they're still reaching out to you.
Yeah.
Can you maybe talk about moving to a librarian teacher and how you're still able to have strong impact on students' lives? Like, is it possible? Is it the same? Is it different?
Oh, yes. I get to see every single student in the school. So if you'd like to do that, as a classroom teacher, you have to be social worker, you have to be psychologist, you have to be all of those things for an elongated period of time for 30 kids or 20 kids. And as a librarian, I'm like a grandfather. I get to see you for a stint, 45 minutes once a week. I see you in the hallway. I see you walking with the teacher and all of that. But that time that they spend with me is immeasurable, but measurable. There was a study by Keith Curry Lance that found, a longitudinal study, that schools that have certified elementary librarians have an increase of 20 points on standardized tests versus schools that don't have certified school librarians. So that kind of is antithetical to the idea of cutting the arts when money is low, because students need whole language learning and well-rounded education. And the key to everything, math, science, is reading. It's reading. And I'm there to support them. And I get parent feedback that, oh my, you taught my child how to find the perfect chapter book, and my child has pride. Or I had an author that came this year who was of Asian descent, and for the very first time, I saw students who were very respectful, but in looking down, not necessarily into my eyes. And as you know, as a teacher, different cultures and different backgrounds show respect different ways. And in this particular culture, looking down while the teacher is talking was respect. So when I brought this person to the school, it was an enlightening moment. I saw their eyes. I saw the pride on their eyes. I saw when I bring someone that looks like me, and the parents and the students are like, oh, wow, like I'm bringing an African American female for the very first time in 12 years. I've never had an African American female author come to my school. I've had African American males and Caucasian males and Asian women. And so my focus now is still African American boys, but African American females, and particularly dark skin. We
Interesting.
need pride. We need to uplift. We need to instill pride. Your hair is lovely, is what I say. Your hair is nice. We know how important hair is to a lot of people. So I recognize them and say, who did your hair? Who did that? Oh, my mom did this. Oh, well, you tell them that Mr. Tabb said they hooked that up right there. And we need that. And so my focus has been this last year, African American females, and trying to do more. I'm doing my part for African American boys, males, and I'm getting feedback from other cultures. But I need to really focus on African American dark skinned females and see how I can empower them more.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's important to recognize how equitable you can be with that, right? Where you see one group is
And
not getting enough, so yeah, I love it.
And I learned that by becoming a foster dad. I became a foster dad of three little girls for a short period of time a couple years ago, a 3 month old, a 3 year old Caucasian little girl, and a 2 year old African American girl, and the 3 months old African American girl. And when I would go out in public for the very first time, I saw feedback about African American dark skinned girls. And so people would look into the bassinet and say, "Oh, you got a baby, okay." But their reaction was that her features weren't as Americanized as they were used to seeing. And I learned from that, oh, it wasn't the it wasn't, isn't that, it wasn't that. It was a different reaction, which made me defensive over children that weren't even mine. But I learned from that, oh, okay, well, I got to do more with this group of kids.
Wow. Yeah, the empowerment, that's everything. Your journey is everything too. Man, thank you so much for this, Mr. Tabb. Your insight about your journey from teacher or military to librarian, all these are part of the reasons why I think you might be one of the greatest teachers of all time.
I appreciate it, Mr. Quincy. You are an awesome interviewer. I appreciate the feedback and I appreciate the background information that you delved into by looking at my Instagram. I feel honored to be a part of this experience.
Yeah, but thank you for that. But this interview is about honoring you. So thanks to Transcendence Children Family Services, I actually want to present you with this $100 prepaid gift card to use with you or your students or whatever you choose for.
Oh, I have a gift bag at the, I don't know, man, I get put that in the gift bag for the kids. I might put that in my own gift bag.
Yeah, see, this is about your appreciation. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and maybe to help show the appreciation to you and your students too, with the support of Victorious RED Restoration, we want to actually sponsor you and one of your classes with a class pizza party.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. Well, I'm going to, with all the red tape nowadays, right? You can, in Philadelphia, I could just say pizza party tomorrow. Nowadays, you got to go through HR and everything, but we're going to make this work.
Yeah,
Thank
we will make
you.
it happen. We will make it happen. So yeah, after these cameras and everything go off, I'll get your address and everything and figure out how to get this gift card and these pizzas delivered to you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Also, thank you to everyone else for watching The Greatest Teacher of All Time, where I, Quincy Dawson, interview teachers of color, highlight their personalities, strategies, and philosophies on education. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and like the video. And if you really liked it, leave a comment so Mr. Tabb can see it. Also, if you are the greatest teacher of all time, or if you know the greatest teacher of all time, go to greatesteacherofalltime.com to let me know. Click on Submit a Teacher. Hope to see you soon.